every machine. This black hat's got his eyes on everything.
All right, everybody. This is Ryan Hill coming to you with Chapter 1 lecture and notes about it. What we want to go over this week in week 2 is Chapter 1 from your book, as well as some extra stuff that we put into your Moodle coursework. So your mycourses.tstc, which you would only be here if you saw it anyway. So Kevin Mitnick is the world's most famous hacker, FBI's most wanted for a long period of time. If you've met me in person, you know he's one of my favorite people to talk about, simply because he's pretty much, I would say and argue, the grandfather of cybersecurity. The reason cybersecurity exists is pretty much because of one man. In the late 90s to early 80s, he did a myriad of things. If you have time to look at it, I would recommend Freedom Downtime. You can look at it online. It is a 2-hour movie. It is free to watch on YouTube. It is free to distribute. It's done by 2600 Magazine and Emmanuel Goldstein. If you guys remember the Hackers movie, Emmanuel Goldstein was a pseudonym for serial killer. And you can actually see some information right here. We've got Takedown. There was a movie done with Skeet Ulrich, and I can't remember the other people in it. It was a terrible movie. Don't watch it. Don't bother. But the Freedom Downtime movie is important to look at because it does go into a big deal about what Kevin Mitnick did, how he was held without trial in solitary confinement because they were afraid he would whistle and launch nuclear missiles, which we now know is ridiculous. But a long time ago, that was not the case. So you can see Kevin Mitnick has his own forensics company. He also has a security consultant company, and his security services, forensics is one of those. Also incident response, professional forensics, witness service, exploit exchange, security awareness training, vulnerability assessments, and claims testing, penetration testing. Really, really cool stuff. He also does speaking engagements. On my Google Plus Hangouts, you see me and Kevin Mitnick together. That's because I met him in person. He comes to the Houston area roughly once a year. He was here last year for VMware conference. If he comes this year, I'll make sure to let you guys know so that you can get a chance to meet him as well and see what he does in person. Really fun stuff. Really cool. So we're going to go back to digital forensics. There's a great, it's like one of the first computer forensics, if not one of the more prominent computer forensics cases on this forensics files here that I have shared with you. The Chapter 1 PowerPoint is what we'll be going over. We'll also go over your metadata assignment, Project 1.1, as well as your attendance or forum post for this week. Quiz, there are technically 2 quizzes. However, one is a review quiz. It's just categorized in Moodle as a quiz, and one is your actual quiz. With the review, you can take it as many times as you want. You have to score at least a 70 to unlock the quiz. Right now, you see it's not available unless you achieve the required score in Chapter 1 review questions. So you'll go do your chapter quiz, and you can see that the method is highest grade. So you can take it as many times as you want, and only the highest grade counts. After that, your quiz becomes unlocked. Your quiz, however, is a one-shot, one deal. Attempts allowed, 1. So with that being said, let's go over our PowerPoint and make sure we get enough information to help you guys through the coursework. All right, Chapter 1, this follows along with Chapter 1, where we're going to define e-discovery and digital forensics, describe the types of digital evidence, explain the factors, summarizing the federal rules and also other countries, and then describe other laws related to digital evidence in ESI discovery. ESI discovery. E-discovery is the process of applying traditional legal discovery processes to electronic evidences. Electronic evidence encompasses any electronically stored information like documents, emails, pictures, web pages, documents. And ESI can be found on the devices like hard drives, cell phones, DVDs, CDs, laptops, even your software or your Internet of Things like your webcams, your smart thermostats, smart light bulbs. There's a little bit of information that gets stored there that they can recover. That is called electronically stored information. Also includes cloud data. So don't forget cloud data. E-discovery is a form of data mining. It's basically gathering information about you, the customer. Target is a notorious data miner. If you've ever gotten coupons from Target based off your shopping habits, that's what the deal is with that. If you get those coupons, they pretty much know your shopping habits. All right. There is an old story, and I was debating on whether or not to mention this or not. It's not controversial, but it is just a really good example of data mining. A long time ago, a couple of years ago, a father went into Target and just cursed the manager out. And he was in his hand, he had a receipt and he had some coupons. And the manager was just beside himself at how this man could be so upset. What he was complaining about to the manager was that his daughter received diaper coupons. And the father was so upset. He said, why are you sending my daughter diaper coupons? She's not pregnant. She's only 16. She's a young girl. It turns out that Target had been keeping track of her purchase based off of her credit card information. Her name was tied to her credit card, and everything she bought got tied to her credit card. So as they saw her monthly buying her monthly women hygiene products, they saw that 1 month she didn't. So the next month they gave her diaper coupons. And it turns out the man had to go back in later and apologize. The father had to go back in later and apologize because his daughter, in fact, turned out to be several weeks pregnant. So Target was right about getting that data mining. They do it even more so with Cartwheel, which Cartwheel's going away. I use Cartwheel. Digital forensics is a scientific method for extracting data or evidence from a digital device or an active network. Don't forget networks. All right. You get to see that in that video too that we share out earlier. The Forensics Files one. Really cool. Really excited for you guys to watch that one. All right. Following the process, basically making sure that your evidence stands up to scrutiny in court. If you pull evidence that's not up to par, or the chain of evidence isn't completely 100% accounted for, then your defense attorney or the defense attorney in the case will start to just tear that prosecution apart. Uncooperative police, to bad evidence, to information that just doesn't line up. So then all of it gets thrown out. And then, of course, your potential suspect, whether guilty or innocent, has a much better chance of getting off on that crime. So field of digital forensics is divided into two sets, like device and network. For the device, you've got files, hidden or deleted, encrypted or regular, and whatever else is there. Networks and deals with network intrusions, network logs, server logs, firewall logs. The key difference between e-discovery and digital forensics. In digital forensics, they're looking for incriminating or exculpatory evidence in a criminal case or an investigation of corporate policy violation, like someone stole files from the major company. Digital forensics can be considered to overlap with e-discovery. Network forensics does not consider to be e-discovery. I would argue to a point, right? It does have digital information, so technically it can be included in that. It's just that they sort of cordoned off network forensics and computer forensics separate. In the experts, e-discovery experts might have to call in a device forensics expert to retrieve that data. So for example, iPhone experts, Android experts, or if you've got a BlackBerry experts. And Windows Phone is making it come back, so maybe Windows Phone experts too. All right. So evidence is examined by the operating system. MAC times. That's not MAC address like your computer address. That's modified access and created dates and times. Modified access and created. File access times, network logins are other great examples of evidence. In Linux operating systems, you get a lot more because there's a lot more involved with Linux. You just don't sort of log in as guest in Linux. It's much more detailed. So the person that did that stuff on the operating system or in the application on Linux is absolutely that user. Very few rare exceptions. With eDiscovery, we're looking to challenge that and making sure you're qualified. So there's a legal qualification and a specialized IT field qualification. Now, if you're interested, if this does sound interesting to you, again, Waco does have that forensics certificate program, the advanced certificate from Waco. You can find that by just Googling TSTC cybersecurity, or you can go to tstc.edu/programs/cybersecurity. It's easier the other way, I think. And looking at the advanced technical certificate. All right. 2 semesters, you're out of the way, and you have your advanced technical certificate for digital forensics, helping you, maybe if forensics is your thing, get you a forensics position. I will note that in Texas, you do have to be a licensed peace officer in order to become a computer forensics technician, because I believe you do carry a weapon. Again, not 100%, but I have seen it said to me, and I have talked to peace officers that have told me they confirm this as well. It could change. I'm not sure if it's changed by the time you hear this. Digital evidence is data or files in digital format. Makes sense, right? Cameras, watches, fax machines, copiers, phones, great examples. Most people don't think fax machines, but fax machines actually hold a log of every call, because most of us don't use fax machines anymore. And we may even use eFax now, but eFax, again, does hold that log. So it's great to remember. Copiers, again, at the same. Probably more utilized for copyright infringement or conspiracy or taking away company secrets. Email exchanges, text messages, blogs, instant messages, all digital communication device or methods or modes does hold a lot more evidence than people think. All right, types of digital evidence: DVDs, audio tapes, phones, SIM cards, memory sticks, and more. Memory sticks, those SD cards from your camera, they're surprisingly resilient. They live for a very long time. I always find them in parking lots, and they work just by plugging them in. I don't do anything special except when I forensically tear them down. All I got to do is just plug it in and they work. Even breaking them, there's still a method to retrieve all the memory off of them. So you got to be careful with your SIM cards and your SD cards. A long time ago, not so long ago, maybe less than 10 years ago, they used to have computers built into fridges. So that's where they're saying digital evidence can come from a refrigerator. Now, most of our refrigerators don't really have a way to connect to the internet anymore. Once upon a time, they had it where you could touch the screen, you could order stuff, and you could put it on your shopping list, your cloud shopping list. It just, I don't think it either took off or it was too expensive, or it just broke all the time because it was, hey, in a refrigerator. Data is the actual information being retrieved, such as letter or document. Metadata is the information about that data that was mentioned before. So metadata can be in a picture file. It tells the investigators what type of camera was used, the date, GPS, focal length, all that photography stuff. So this right here is a very abbreviated example of metadata. It tells you Canon power shot, the date taken, JPEG, the size. It also gives the GPS latitude and longitude. A long time ago, when smartphones first came out, they were sharing out this GPS location. And it was a danger for people because you could be at IHOP saying like selfie at IHOP eating pancakes. Next thing you know, some stalkers showing up because they looked at the GPS location. And then there are some pranksters that like to make their GPS location the moon. That's really fun. So to access the photos metadata, You can open Explorer, right click it, choose properties, and look at the details. And you can see we've got at a focal length of 2.7, exposure time. It gives you a lot of information about the camera itself, as well as some of the other stuff. The Windows one, not a lot of metadata. It looks like a lot here. It's really not. There is more in depth, and that's going to be part of your lab, your metadata lab. Metadata is also available for documents. It's on everything you create, everything you move, everything you copy, everything you change. Metadata keeps track of all of that. Has to be handled carefully because the second I open it, it becomes accessed by me, making my metadata evidence completely defunct. Can't use it anymore in court because it was tampered. Who opened it before that? When was the last change? All of that can be subject. So you got to be careful when you mess with documents that have metadata that you're planning on sending to court for evidence. And that's one big thing about this course. The eDiscovery course here deals a lot with court cases, criminal and civil. It's important to know. And if you don't get a job in criminal justice or civil justice, or you go to work for digital forensics, it's great information to know just to keep you, the user, safe. Additionally, you could also see your particular investigation might go towards authorities eventually, and you want to keep that in place. Metadata shows up who works on the file, might violate other standards, such as privacy regulations like taking files where they're not supposed to, and copyright infringement. Big deal. Cloud computing is on-demand access to remote software, servers, applications, and other resources. So those of you that have iCloud, and everyone that gets their iCloud hacked, celebrities that get their pictures released on the internet, is because their iCloud got hacked. Not because somebody had physical access to their phone, but they were able to do the iCloud hack. And they would pull in digital forensics technicians that specialize in cloud computing to do that. But they wouldn't serve a warrant or serve a discovery model or a subpoena to the actual victim or the criminal in question, because the data doesn't live on that physical device. They have to go to the manufacturer or the service manufacturer or the people that host that service and issue them the subpoena, issue them the warrant for search and seizure. So it's important to know that that is a difference there. The National Institute of Standards and Technologies, and you'll hear this a lot through all your courses, NIST, defines standards. They basically are a big dictionary for all these acronyms like SAS, PAS, and IaaS. Software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. For deployment methods, private, community, public, and hybrid. It's important to know that hybrid is a combination of those. Private would be something you have private. Community would be publicly hosted, but in a group, and public is open for everybody, and hybrid can be a combination of those. Software as a service is specific to a software, not storage, but software. And a great example is Google Docs. Dropbox, not such a great example because it sounds like storage, not software, okay? And then there is platforms as a service where they install their own applications. Amazon Web Services is a great example of this. Bare metal environments where they install their own OSs on bare metal servers provided by the IIS people, whoever they do business with. All right, so the most secure deployment obviously is going to be private cloud. The client uses their own hardware and has physical access. Community cloud, people and organizations with similar interests or similar business types. Public cloud is on another physical machine, on the same physical machine as another person's files. Everybody's grouped together. Hybrid is some combination of those. All right, civil cases. So there are two types of cases. So O.J. Simpson was not convicted criminally, but he was convicted civilly. So he did not go to jail for murder, but he did get sued for millions of dollars on the civil case side. So civil holds no jail time penalty unless something is discovered during that trial that can be used as a criminal procedure. All right, but the same evidence applies. You have to request the documents, and then they have to be produced. Evidence can't be tampered with, and then criminal cases use search warrants and subpoenas. The other one is just a request. So that's the case. Civil is requests, criminal is search warrants and subpoenas. Still have to hold evidence to a high regard. Evidence acquisition, retrieving deleted files, deleted emails, file fragments, and other information. You don't do a simple file copy. You have to do a forensic image. If you copy that file, you just changed its metadata. And you just destroyed all evidence. Not physically gone, but being submitted to the courts gone. Because they're increasing in size, live acquisitions are very common. They're done while the machine is running, and they help produce a more complete picture. And you basically make two copies. You do a live in-field acquisition, then you take that back to the lab and you make a duplicate copy. The duplicate copy is the one you're going to basically rip apart. So if you change metadata by accident, your original copy is untampered. It's still in its plastic bag. It's still sealed. So we're going to use Access Data FTK in this class, but there are other softwares that you'll go over, I believe in chapter 3, that give you a little bit more in-depth knowledge of what everything, I mean, all inclusive, gives you when it comes time to work with digital forensics tools. The catch here is some of it can be very, very expensive. For example, Guidance software does in-case forensics. In-case forensics is about $1,000 a license. So if we were to build it in our labs here on campus for a 20-seat campus, we'd be looking at $20,000 just to do it. Or 21 technically, because the instructor needs to show you guys how to do it. So $21,000 would be roughly what the cost would be. Now we can get an education package. It's not as full powered, and the support options are somewhat limited, but it gives you guys the opportunity to do that. Since Access Data FTK has a trial mode, that should be included on the disk, or if you go to the Google Share link from our original introduction, make sure you grab that software. And there it is right there, Access Data FTK 3.4.3. And your lab will also, lab 1.1 also pulls into that. So we'll go back to our PowerPoint slide deck. For the digital forensics team and legal team, their efforts get correlated easily with this team. The legal team can view these e-discoveries, but they also have additional court viewings. There's another software for that. We'll go over that in a later chapter. Oh, yep, in detail in chapter 3. All right, so cost and time needs to be considered. If you work at a small company, say 5 employees, probably not worth it to spend $1,000 on in-case. But you can go with freeware and shareware. And that's exactly what Access ETK is. All right. E-discovery is very time consuming. And because these drives are getting bigger all the time, it means it takes it longer. If you do a bit by bit copy on a terabyte, it takes a long time. Afterwards, you've got to comb through it all. What's relevant? What do you need to focus on? Do I need to watch all this guy's movies that's like Transformers and The Matrix and all the Lord of the Rings? Do I need to watch all, I think it's like 6 Lord of the Rings, 3 Lord of the Rings, and 3 The Hobbit? Do I need to watch all 6 Lord of the Rings style Tolkien movies? They're 3 hours a piece. No, you don't. You only go and focus on what's relevant to your case. All right. There are federal rules in the U.S. courts that say there are procedures you have to adhere to as a criminal forensics or forensics investigator. Federal Rules of Criminal Procedures, FRCP, Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, FRCRP, and Federal Rules of Evidence, FRE. Each state has its own interpretation, and each country. In 1938, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, FRCP, was discovered or established, and they have all of these rules. Now, the book goes into these rules in a little bit of detail. If you want to find more, just Google them. For the course here, they're important to know, but they're not so crazy that you have to know exactly what they say. Because again, there are a lot of legal terms in this course that can just be a little overwhelming. All right. In 1944, established the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, the FRCRP. In 1944 established, and Rule 41 deals with search and seizure. 2002, they had to make an amendment to that, searching and seizing computers and obtaining electronic evidence in criminal investigations document. Whew, that's long. The Federal Rules of Evidence, drafted in 1975, changed with digital evidence a little bit, but it does add a few interpretations. The hearsay rule, for example, I can't say that Steve told me that Tom told me that his cousin, whose boyfriend's girlfriend committed this murder. That doesn't hold up in court. And therefore, essentially, text messages and emails might prove the recipient had been told something. However, they can't prove the information's accuracy. So a text message that says the exact same, Steve told me Tom's ex-girlfriend's girlfriend's boyfriend, all that biz, doesn't apply to evidence. Now, firsthand witness accounts do count as evidence. I saw so-and-so get murdered on the street XYZ at X time. That counts. Federal Rules of Evidence impact how it's performed. And you can see, again, tons of articles. You're not training to be lawyers. If you're in criminal justice, some of this will probably prove to be very, very fascinating. For the rest of us, it's just important to know that there are governing procedures in place. ESI is pretty much crazy. It can be anywhere and everywhere, and it can be very, very detailed and a lot of information can be stored in there. The location where the data is located affects the laws that the location is housed in. So for example, if your cloud data is stored in Malaysia, they have to go to Malaysia and adhere to the country's laws for e-discovery purposes, not United States laws. All right, and emails can go anywhere in the world, and everywhere they ends up with a different discovery process. And possibly if they bounce from one server to another, the servers in between, if you want to get that information, you have to go through those different countries. So the way the internet works, it's completely all over the place. Sedona principles, we're not going to go over very much because you're going to tell me about Sedona principles. It's 14 principles that link to the FRCP, and it's designed to ease the burden in your e-discovery process. All right. You make a page posting about this, and it's not that bad as it sounds, right? You do a page double spaced with the 14 principles. And because 14 lines eats up a lot of time, you're pretty much almost done by the time you're done with the 14. But you do need to make sure you cite that source. All right. So for your forum, you're going to find that article that discusses the Sedona principles, the 14 principles you find practical, and what do you have concerns about. You're going to write a one page. I always like to just pull up Microsoft Word, set it to double space, type everything I've got in there, and you're all set. Copy and paste it over into Moodle, and you're done. That is 50% of your grade. The other 50% is your reply to another student. Just one. You make a comment on what you thought of the research, but it must be 2 paragraphs or more. And a paragraph is considered to be a minimum of 3 sentences. If you write 6 sentences, I will count it as 2 paragraphs. All right. I just want to see a lengthy, not good job, I think it's cool, I'll see you in class. Those 3 sentences don't even count. All right, heading back over. FRCP amendments in 2006 was amended to address e-discovery, requires companies to protect data that might be subject to discovery, and additionally costs them big fines if they alter it or change it. And they're helping to sort of speed the process up because it can be a little weird and hard to get those files back and forth, the electronic discovery sets. When prosecution and defense have to share that electronic information, they also have to make sure that they pass it on unaltered. And there's a pretty cool video that DEF CON forensics examiners did. It's in either this class or your computer forensics class. Really fun to watch. And I believe it's probably in this course. So the FRCP amendments, the form has to be readily available. The requesting party specifies another form. They have to produce it or object and propose their own form, just like discovery processes in court. So when they scan paper and documents, it has to be done through PDF. It has to be done in PDF or TIFF, and it's supposed to make it easier and using for optical character recognition. Those of you that don't know what OCR means, if you scan a page into a scanner, it recognizes every word and letter and pulls it into a more editable format. Typically, if you scan a PDF, it stays a PDF. When you apply the OCR to it, that's when it recognizes letters and numbers. It's still not 100%. Its formatting gets a little skewed, but it's not as bad as it once was. It used to be really bad, really awful. You just didn't use it anymore. If you lost a document, but you only had the hard copy for, you just end up retyping it all over. So the FRCP amendments, they have a duty to preserve that evidence and make sure it's relevant to the actual potential litigation. The amended 37 says that they can't destroy it. They can't do it for any reason, not routine or good faith. And it's called spoliation when a party wrongfully destroys evidence. Policies and companies should be in place to prove that they're followed routinely. The FRCP clarifies how ESI is handled during discovery. And it's also affected by IRS rules, corporate policies, or ongoing projects. Many states have adopted policies and procedures. Texas adopted ESI before FRCP amendments were passed. Some states haven't done so, where some are still in the process of processing the litigation. Now, this book was published in 2006. The slide sets come from the book publisher themselves, actually 2014. I don't know why I said 2006. Sorry, 2014. So that's how old this book is. It's not that old, but it may, this number may have changed since then, just to let you know. The subcommittee in Canada has its own set of guidelines and sections, and under Sedona Canada Working Group. Sorry, in 2010 they amended its rules for civil procedure for ESI, and one of their biggest challenges was dealing with the legal profession's lack of knowledge in dealing with e-discovery. I'm sure a lot of files were quote unquote accidentally deleted. In 2010, they created a rule that held that the discovery plan must be written in 60 days of close of pleadings. Discovery plan shall be in writing and include scope of discovery, dates of service, information about timing and costs, and any other information intended to complete it. The Sedona principles at the Ontario checklist for preparing discovery plan are now part of Canadian procedural law, Rule 29.105. If you're planning on going to Canada, this may be very useful. Otherwise, I just find it really interesting stuff. So in summation, e-discovery is the accumulation of digital information used for litigation. Digital evidence can be found in a variety of forms, in a wide range of devices. The methods used to acquire digital evidence can determine its effectiveness and admissibility in court. A number of software tools are designed for e-discovery. Cost and time considerations affect what tools a company selects for e-discovery and ESI retention. The U.S. Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, FRCP, along with rules such as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, govern the ways in which corporations preserve data and data is presented or exchanged in legal proceedings. The Federal Rules of Evidence, FRE, in the U.S. have a direct bearing on how evidence is collected and maintained for both civil and criminal cases. The Federal Rules of Civil FRCP, again, taking the rights of the U.S. Bills of Rights and constitutional rights of the defendant. UN law was created to address e-commerce investigations. Canada and members of the European Union have similar rules for governing e-discovery. The Sedona Principles are 14 rules that can be used to help mitigate costs and preserve evidence in e-discovery cases. So with that, we are done with the lecture. We'll go over real quick the 2 labs. The metadata assignment you have. Most labs will either be a file you download and fill in, or there will be instructions in this area. So for this one, we'll download our metadata project. And I'll make it bigger so you guys can see it. All right. The NISO has pulled out this really awesome paper on understanding metadata. It's going to give you everything you need to know. But there are about 6 questions you need to answer for me. And here they are. What did you learn? What are some examples contained in metadata? What types of files are in metadata? Are email headers considered metadata? What information can you get out of metadata, or can you get out of email headers? This is not in that document. You're going to have to do your own research and figure that out. All right. Everything else can be answered from this PDF. It's very long, but I think it's very interesting. What you're primarily concerned with is metadata. All right, there's a second part to this project, EXIF. What is EXIF? What devices use EXIF file types? Now, this document may tell you about it, or it may not. You're going to have to use your own thinking here. So when you tell me what EXIF is and what devices use EXIF, find your friend's EXIF files from a social media website and see what information you can pull. I use these 2 sites here. They're really good sites, and they'll help you. You don't even have to download it. You can link the file through the URL. Or you can use a tool of your choice. If you do it, tell me what it is. Make sure you source it. If you don't have any friends or no social media, just find an image elsewhere. There are tons of them all over the internet. All right, going back to chapter 1, you have chapter 1-1, our project 1-1 assignment. Again, you download the form and you will follow the instructions. It's really straightforward. You will need access data, FTK Imager. So you can either go to accessdata.com, click support products download, or you can just get it straight out of the book disk or through the Google Shared Drive. After that, you have your forum post for your attendance, which we talked about, the Sedona Principles. Don't forget to cite, use your MLA formatting. If you don't remember what that looked like, check the introductory forum post. Make sure you complete your review questions and your chapter 1 quiz, and I'll talk to you guys next week.